Hello again everyone, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video we are going to be taking an early access look at the soon to be released Black Square Analog Baron. The Baron comes hot off the heels of the Black Square Bonanza, an aircraft of course that we looked at recently and which I very much enjoyed. And I have to say I've really been enjoying Black Square's output to date. They've been making some excellent upgrades for the default sim aircraft, of course including the Bonanza, the King Air. Next in line we have another member of the Beechcraft family, an aircraft that I've certainly been looking forward to, I know many of you have as well, and of course again that is the Baron. Good news as well for any of you who have purchased the Bonanza from Just Flight and are keen to pick up the Baron as well. As a result of your previous purchase you will be entitled to a 25% discount on the B58. Anyway, as I say, the Black Square Analog Baron should be releasing in just a few days time. For those of you unfamiliar with the Black Square Steam Gauge Overhaul series, the product aims to take the default aircraft within the sim, significantly overhaul them, particularly with regards to the aircraft systems, as well of course the gauges themselves. There are also tweaks to the flight modelling as well as the aircraft sounds. Really the only aspect of the product that remains default is the external model of the aircraft. To date, Black Square's lineup within the sim has been very strong, and I'm certainly looking forward to taking a look at the Baron here in today's video. Once again, this is going to be an early access look, so there may be a few tweaks, additions, fixes before the final product release, but as we saw with the Bonanza, the Baron is already in a very fine state, and I think you'll really get a good feel for what the product has to offer as we make our flight. So in today's video, we are going to be carrying out a little bit of Caribbean island hopping in the B58. It's going to be a very short run. We're currently here on the ground at St Barts. We're going to be taking the aircraft back home towards Princess Juliana. Quite a short flight time then, but as ever I'll try and demonstrate the aircraft to you as best I can. This is very much going to be a preview flight, a full flight, so as usual we'll run things through from a cold and dark start right through to the shutdown. I suspect most of you watching this will have a pretty good idea by now as to what the Black Square products have to offer, indeed even what the Baron has to offer. We'll try and have some fun with the aircraft along the way though, hopefully you'll enjoy the flight. As always, if you do, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing to the channel. It's a lovely but rather hot and humid day here on the ground in St Barts, so let's head for the beautiful but rather steamy cockpit of the Baron. So here we are then in the cockpit of the Black Square Analog Baron. It's an aircraft that I've certainly been looking forward to, I know that many of you have as well, and as ever Black Square have done a really nice job with the Baron. Excellent level of detail in terms of the systems modelling, really nice detailing as well here on the custom gauges. Of course we do have multiple avionics options available, and those can be cycled through just using the switches down here on the right of the main instrument panel. As I often like to do, we're going to be using the Garmin G10XR unit here for the flight today. And worth noting, just to avoid any confusion here before we start the flight, this particular unit is not included with the aircraft. It's actually a separate piece of payware available from TDS. Anyway, as we discussed during the introduction, we're currently on the ground at St Barts. We're going to be departing out off runway 10 of course today. We do have a nice headwind for that. So running through the before start checks, the seats are positioned and locked, seatbelts and shoulder harnesses are secure. Parking brake is set on, avionics master is off. Landing gear handle is selected down, cowl flaps are selected open, fuel selectors both set on. Circuit breakers are checked in down on the right, and same down on the left. And as ever with it being a Black Square product, the circuit breakers can be tripped. There are random failures as well associated with the aircraft. So it is worth following the checklist accurately and making sure all of your systems are configured here ahead of the flight, as we've just done. With that in mind then, the battery master switch can go on. The fuel quantities, we've got about 40 US gallons there in each main tank, plenty of fuel to get us home towards Princess Juliana. And lastly again, just checking, we do have the landing gear selected down and we now have an indication of 3 greens. So the before start checks there may well be quite familiar to any of you that own the Analog Bonanza. Of course the aircraft do share a lot in common, both being Beechcraft aircraft. Of course though with the Baron we do have the extra engine, a little bit more systems complexity as well, but again the checklist will remain very familiar throughout. Anyway, it's getting pretty hot in the cabin. Once again that is modelled, we're up through 41 degrees now, so definitely breaking a bit of a sweat. We'll try and get the aircraft started up fairly quickly here, we'll get the aircon on, at least until we carry out the run-up. So for the start, the mixture lever can go through to fully rich. We'll be starting the left-hand engine first. Props are set fully forward, throttle can go through to fully open. We'll prime the engine. To do that, we'll just come up to low initially on the fuel boost pump, checking the operation there, through to high, wait until we see a peak in fuel flow. That can go back to off. And we'll just open the throttles about ½ inch here for the start. As ever, making sure the prop area is clear. Looks to be good. We'll open up the DV window.
Clear prop!
And bringing the left-hand selector here through to the start position. So we do have a good start there on the left. The oil pressure has come up. We'll come up on the throttle, looking to maintain around 1200 RPM. As with the Bonanza and indeed the rest of the Black Square lineup, the engine modelling is pretty good. It can take a while sometimes for the engines to catch, so we got fairly lucky there on the left. We'll try and achieve the same result on the right. There's 1200 RPM, we'll get the left alternator on. And same procedure then for the right engine, so mixture through to fully rich, throttle through to fully forward. We'll prime the engine. And again, setting that back to ½ inch. All clear on the right. And engaging the right starter. And as you can see, we didn't quite catch there on the right. As I say, the engine modelling is pretty decent, so we'll just prime again. And this time do have a good start there on the right. Once again, the oil pressure has come up, leaving those throttles idling around 1200 RPM for now. We're waiting until we come up through 24 degrees Celsius on the oil temp. We're already up through 40 there on the right, coming up through about 60 there on the left. Again, pretty hot down the back there, 41 degrees, so we'll just get the aircon on for now. Go through to high there on the blower, just making sure we turn that off again before the departure. So 2 good starts. The right alternator is selected on, checking the voltmeter there and the load meter. Everything looking good. The after start checks, the avionics master can go on. The exterior lights, we'll get the taxi lights on in preparation for the taxi. And just checking our way here through the flight instruments. So altimeter QNH is currently 1007 here at St Barts. Got 1007 there on the left. And we'll set the same on the right. That's giving us an aerodrome elevation of around 40 feet, which is correct. Just initialise here the GTNXI. We'll wait for that to complete the TORS test. Heading bug set on 100 degrees. That's the runway heading, of course, runway 10.
System test okay.
TORS test is complete. We'll clear our message. And showing 330 there on the HSI, 330 on the compass. So we'll set up a quick rough and ready flight plan back towards Princess Juliana. It's Tango, November, Mike, correction, Charlie Mike. In terms of the track outbound, it's 313, we'll set that on the HSI. So 313. And we'll just tune up as well the Princess Juliana VOR just as a backup. So that's Papa Juliet Mike 1130. Transferring that straight across, and we do have Papa Juliet Mike visually identified. Back to map for now. We'll leave the GPS and the RNAV unit off, same for the ODF. We'll set the transponder through to standby, and weather radar as well can go through to standby, although it's a very nice day obviously here today, so not anticipating really needing the weather radar for the flight. Anyway, one last quick scan over the systems. You can see there the cabin temperature is coming down now through 36 degrees, so becoming a little bit more comfortable. Just set up the autopilot here as well. We're going to be cruising over 4,000 feet. Again, it's going to be a very quick hop back towards the airport, only around 17 miles. Just pre-select here as well a climb rate of 1,500 feet per minute. And we are now ready for the taxi. All clear on the right, and all clear on the left. Back off the power, the park brake can come off. So we're just going to taxi straight ahead here. We'll swing ourselves around into wind for the run-up. We'll get the run-up done on the taxiway, and then we'll make our way out towards the holding point. You can see there's not going to be much behind us if we swing the aircraft around here.
Good afternoon, 902 Mike Tango. 902 Mike Tango, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, taxi with Juliana, 2 souls, 25.
So we'll just get the aircraft parked up in the area ahead of us. As I say, we'll swing through 180 degrees. Both oil temperatures now come up quite nicely to around 60 degrees. So onto the brakes.
Station Roger, no reported traffic, wind is 050 degrees, 20 knots, QNH 30.06.
And aircraft stationary, park brake can go on. Again, just bring the throttles up to around 1200 RPM.
3006 per traffic.
We'll leave the air conditioning on for now just to get that cabin temperature down. We don't need it off until we carry out the takeoff. The before takeoff checks, the park brake is set. Seatbelts and shoulder harnesses are secure. Fuel boost pumps can both stay off if we're above 32 degrees Celsius, and we're pretty much bang on that at the moment. We'll leave them off for the flight today. Flight instruments, once again scanning those, making sure everything is reading correctly. Fuel indications, again we have 40 US gallons in each main tank. Mixtures are set through to fully rich. The starter energized warning light is out. Interestingly, that I would assume would ordinarily be in the after start checks. Anyway, for the run up we'll come up to 2200 RPM. And again, just having a quick scan of those temperatures and pressures. Everything looking good ahead of the run up. The aircraft is holding on the brakes. And there's 2200 RPM cycling the props. So props are good, back through to 1700 RPM for the mag check. And again, temperatures and pressures are good. You can see there the cylinder head temperature is just creeping up. So 1700, just to save a little bit of time here, we'll run through a pretty brief mag check. Obviously we've got both of the engines here to check.
And Station St Martin 210, ready, taxi back to Sable.
St Martin 210, no reported traffic, wind is 060 degrees, 19 knots, QNH 30.09.
Roger, copy the information, we'll enter back to Apple 06 departure for the 210.
So mags are good, and again just confirming they're both set to both. Throttles back to idle. And you can see there as we come back on the power, the alternator warning lights kicking in as the alternators drop off. So again, very nice detailing there in terms of the aircraft electrical system. Idling just above 400 RPM. And coming back up on the throttles again, we'll just leave the engines idling around 1000 for now. The takeoff, we'll check the flaps. Firstly through to the approach position. There's approach indicated. There's the landing position, and again indicated there on the light. And it's going to be a flaps up takeoff, so bring the flaps back through to the up position. And the flaps indicating up. For the flight controls, we'll check those. They are full and free. Elevator trim. I'm going to go 2 units up here for the takeoff. Elevator trim is set. Rudder and aileron trim are set neutral. Doors and windows are closed. As always, worth mentioning, it is a black square product, so the door's not modelled in terms of opening and closing. DV window closed up there as well. And as we discussed, we'll get the air conditioning system off here for the takeoff. Cabin's down to around 31 degrees now, so still pretty warm, but nevertheless a bit more comfortable. So the blur can come off, AC can come off as well. we'll taxi ourselves out towards the holding point.
E0701, startup is approved. Juliana has cleared the E0701 from station to Aruba via Gouda, Scapa, flight line route, flight level 150, squawk 1137.
Cleared station of Gouda, Scapa, flight line route, level 150.
Okay, so we now have ourselves lined up here on runway 10, just running through the last of our before takeoff items. Pitot heats are selected on, same there for the still warning heat. Got the landing lights on as well, same for the strobes. Transponder set to out, the weather radar is set through to the on position. Park brake can come off. And we're just going to hold the aircraft on the brakes here. We've got a fairly short takeoff run off runway 10. So feeding in the throttles. There's full power, RPMs look good, temperatures and pressures checked. Airspeed's alive. There's 80 knots, so easing back on the yoke. And straight away here we're going to make a gentle climbing left turn to take ourselves away from the terrain. We do have a positive climb, so we'll tap the brakes. The gear can come up. And as we discussed, looking for that course of 313 over towards Princess Juliana. Aircraft just getting a few bumps there off the hills. We'll pitch for 120 knots, we can start trimming for that. A big swing there, loss of power on the left. So we'll just get the wings levelled. Using a boot full of rudder here as well to centre up that ball on the turn and slip indicator. Okay, so the aircraft now more or less in balance. Just pitching to make sure we keep above the blue line there, 100 knots. And running through our memory items, mixtures up, pitch up, power up, gears up, flaps up. The dead leg is our dead engine. At the moment, my left leg here doing no work, we've got right rudder, so identifying the left engine and confirming that there with the engine instruments. So we'll feather the left engine, bringing the prop lever there all the way back through to the feather position. And you can see there the prop rolling off, the RPM is reducing, and now into the feather position. Speed's still good. We'll continue our left turn here. Debatable here whether or not we'd want to make a landing back at St Barts. Perhaps potentially here we might want to continue through to Princess Juliana since it's a much easier approach, longer runway, but for the sake of interest and for the sake of a bit of a challenge today, we're going to return to St Barts back onto runway 10. Anyway, in the meantime, we'll get the engine secure, so the fuel selector, again confirming the left, and go through to the off position. Same there for the mixture, and for the mags, and the alternator. Fairly decent performance here on the single engine, so we'll just come back slightly on both the throttle and the prop. We'll come back to 25. And now we've got that prop feathered up as well, we can start reducing that rudder input a little. Definitely quite a lot of swing there with the failed engine. Lots of rudder required to centre up the ball, which is really nice to see. Pretty decent single engine handling overall from the aircraft. Prop lever unfortunately responding to my throttle inputs there by the looks of things. That's probably going to be an issue periodically throughout the flight. Anyway, we'll run through our engine failure checks, just make sure we've got all the items there. So landing gear and flaps are selected up, throttle was back at idle. Again, we're going to have issues there with my hardware bindings to keep moving the control levers around. Prop again is set through to feathered. Maintaining at least 100 knots, again we're good on the speed, doing about 120, more or less level here at 1,000 feet. On a bit of a left-hand downwind currently. We'll keep ourselves fairly close to the island here to make our return approach. So to secure the engine, once again the mixture is set to idle cutoff. Fuel boost pump. Interestingly there, it looks like it's in the low position, must have been a bit of a misclick there earlier, that's now off. Magneto switches are off, cow flaps are closed. And again, we have the left alternator off, monitoring that electrical load. A little bit tricky to see there behind the throttles, but looks like we've got a high load now, of course, on the right alternator. We are just losing a little bit of altitude here, so we'll come fully back up on that live engine for now. And again, as you can see, needing more right rudder as we do so. So again, I think we've got a slight hardware issue there, but you can see, as you saw during the initial stages of the engine failure, we can feather the prop. Anyway, full power now on the live engine. We're doing about 120 knots, just about maintaining straight and level. But that is going to give us enough energy in hand here to make our way around the hills and back onto runway 10. We'll get our downwind checks out of the way, so brakes are checked and off. Undercarriage will hold, particularly for now. We don't want to give ourselves any more drag than we already have. Mixtures are rich, fuel pumps. We'll go to low on the live engine here, just as a bit of redundancy. And fuel quantities, of course, still plenty of fuel on board. Flight instruments. Got 225 there on the HSI, same on the compass. Altimeters are set. Landing lights are on, harness is secure. We'll start turning now onto base. Again, probably not an approach you'd be wanting to make single engine here in reality, but for the sake of, I thought, a bit of an interesting challenge here, we'll give it a go. And as I say, so far the aircraft handling pretty nicely. The Black Square aircraft do tend to have moderately customised flight models versus the default aircraft, and that definitely shows here in terms of the single engine handling. So as we've just discussed, we'll hold the gear and the flaps until we're confident here that we're going to make the runway. You can already see the runway just off the nose. You can actually start reducing that power now. And happy here we are going to clear the hill, so we'll take the gear down. You can start reducing that speed as well. We'll come through to approach flaps. And just holding off again on landing flap until we're confident we are going to make the runway.
500.
Into the white arc. That's checked 500. Again, I'm pretty happy here that we are going to make the runway. So pitch is full fine, undercarriage is down, flaps are set. Coming all the way back on the power now. We don't want to come in any higher than we currently are. Ideally there we want to be hugging the contours of the hill a little bit more. So speed's good. We're not going to finesse the touchdown here too much. We want to get the aircraft down and braking. There's touchdown, straight onto the brakes. And braking pretty aggressively here, but we are going to get the aircraft stopped before the end of the runway. So just backtracking runway 10 here on the single engine. See the aircraft a little bit sluggish as a result. We'll make our way past the terminal here, we'll head off to the right. Again, get ourselves parked up, see if we can't find an engineer. We'll just hold off until we got the aircraft stationary before we run through the afterland checks. That way we can keep a good lookout here as we make the taxi. Just before we come onto the apron though, we will get the landing lights off. So vacating off to the right.
0701, request taxi.
We'll go and get ourselves parked up here in front of the hangar building.
E0701.
That's 0701, request taxi.
Taxi approved. Wind is 050 degrees, 19 knots, gust in the 25, QNH 30.06.
30.06, taxi approved, 0701.
So once again, stationary part brake can come on. We'll get the pitot heats off. Same there for the stall warning heat. And same as well for the strobe lights. Transponder can go off.
Confirm backtrack approved, easy 701.
And the flaps can come up.
Backtrack approved 701.
Running through the afterlanding checks then, landing lights and taxi lights. Get the taxi lights off there as well, are off. Flaps are up, trim tabs. Just set those back to 0. So there's the elevator.
Easy 701, you're released. Direct Gouda, 050 degrees, 17 knots, costing the 24.
And same there on the rudder.
Released,
Cow flaps, again open on the live engine. Fuel boost pump is off. And for the shutdown checks, the parking brake is set, prop through to high RPM. Throttles, leave the engine idling here around 1200. Fuel boost pumps are off. Electrical and avionics equipment. So avionics master off. And the rest of the electrical equipment off there as well. And lastly, just shutting down the live engine, so the number 2. Bringing the mixture through to the cut-off position. Good shutdown there on the right, mags can come off. And we'll get the alternator and the battery off. So a rather short but very eventful and hopefully enjoyable flight for you there in the Black Square Analog Baron. So there you go guys, I do hope you enjoyed our outing in the Black Square Analog Baron. Once again, as with the Bonanza, the King Air as well, I would have to say that the Baron is a real triumph from the Black Square team, a really nice addition to the sim. Again, this video does aim to be an early access preview of the product, so we're not going to review the aircraft in its entirety, but overall really only good things to say about the B-58. So long as you aren't too fazed by the use of the default Baron model, and a few limitations that does come along as a result of that, for example no working doors on the aircraft, no external fixtures and fittings, then the Black Square steam gauge overhaul of the aircraft, as per usual, offering a very deep system simulation of the B-58, as well as a very nice set of custom steam gauges. The flight modelling as well certainly significantly improved over the default version of the aircraft, and the same goes with the aircraft sounds. Whilst the Baron does make use of the default sound set within the sim, there are a whole host of extra sounds added that really go to ramp up the immersion of the B-58. One factor which is very important and certainly well worth noting, given that the product is an overhaul of the default Baron, you will need of course the Baron available within your simulator, so you will need to have purchased either the Deluxe or the Premium Deluxe version of Microsoft Flight Simulator. If you do satisfy that requirement though, then certainly I can highly recommend the Baron. Again, I think it's an excellent product from Black Square. As we discussed during the introduction, this is an early access look at the product. Just Flight were kind enough to let me take an early access look at the add-on. But nevertheless, it comes across certainly as being very near to completion. I think that's quite obvious from the video. The systems depth of the aircraft, really the forte of the Steam Gauge Overhaul series. Again, I think that comes across quite clearly throughout the flight. As we saw with the Bonanza, the Baron also comes in multiple variants, so you have both the turbocharged, the pressurised, as well as the winglet version of the B-58. As demonstrated during the video, there are also multiple avionics options available for each variant of the aircraft. So as with most of the Black Square family, plenty of variety, plenty of customisation available there. With a little bit of background tweaking and fiddling around, you can also make use of any default Baron liveries that you currently own. The aircraft also boasts 100 plus random or scheduled failures, and obviously we took a look at one of those in the video here today. As with their Bonanza, Black Square also claiming that the aircraft has the most advanced turbocharger simulation currently available within Microsoft Flight Simulator. Engine simulation, as we saw during the startup, again very nice overall. For example, the engines do model fouling, vapor lock, flooding, backfires. And again, as we also saw with the analog Bonanza, the Baron here also models accurate VOR and ADF signal attenuation and noise degradation. Every circuit breaker has been modelled, it can be pulled, it can be tripped, and you'll notice as well the correct systems logic behind each circuit breaker. Even details right down to the cabin environment. Again, we saw we got pretty hot there on the ground in St Barts. The aircraft's environmental control system is also fully modelled and will have to be managed by the pilot. The aircraft does also come with a persistent state, although as with the Bonanza there are certain systems that are affected by state saving, others which aren't. Hopefully, as we've seen with other Black Square products, they'll continue to add to the state saving over time such that we get a more comprehensive persistent state on the aircraft. Anyway, the aircraft systems, I think it would be fair to say, are right up there with any other add-on that I can think of off the top of my head in terms of GA aircraft within Microsoft Flight Simulator. And really nice, I think as well, now that we have both the Bonanza, the Baron and the King Air, you can really work your way up through the Beechcraft family. In terms of the flying, the flight model to me did feel much improved over the default version of the aircraft, and Black Square do really seem to be getting a handle now on making these changes to the default flight models. I don't think you're necessarily going to get a flying experience quite up there with the likes of the Blackbird Cessna 310, the FlySimWare Cessna 414, but the Baron's flight model felt good overall, and as you saw there during the single engine handling, certainly plenty of swing there with the engine failed, quite a lot of rudder required as well to correct. I suspect as well there, looking at the airspeed indicator, had we not balanced the aircraft out pretty quickly on the rudder, we would have lost airspeed, potentially losing control of the aircraft. So overall, the Baron, a nice challenge to fly, certainly a very capable, very high performance twin, and I think it sits very nicely as well, as I say, between both the King Air and the Bonanza. Graphically, as ever, Black Square have done a very nice job with the aircraft, as I think you can see here. The gauges are pretty exquisite and exacting in terms of their detail, their smoothness. Despite the graphical overhaul, the B-58 is also pretty FPS friendly. I was getting about 72 FPS in the aircraft versus around 80 in the default Cessna 152. That's pretty typical for this level of fidelity, and certainly I'm happy to give up a few FPS for the level of depth that we have here on the add-on. In terms of pricing, the product is going to be going on sale for around $33 US. For those of you unfamiliar with the Black Square Steam Gauge Overhaul series, that may well seem very expensive for what is essentially a default aircraft upgrade. As I've mentioned in previous videos, I was initially skeptical myself in terms of the pricing versus what you're going to be getting for your money, but overall the product is very much worth that sort of price. And again, if you have purchased the Bonanza as well from Just Flight, then you are also entitled to a 25% discount on the Baron. Anyway, in summary, at the risk of repeating myself, I do think the Baron is another excellent offering from Black Square. Another really nice addition to the sim, a great upgrade to the default Baron, again if you do specifically own either the Deluxe or the Premium Deluxe version of Microsoft Flight Simulator. Hopefully we'll get the chance again in the not too distant future for another outing in the Baron. For now though, I would just like to thank Just Flight once again for letting us take an early access look at the product. Thank you very much as well to my channel members and patrons for all of your support, it is thoroughly appreciated. And thank you to all of you as well for watching the video. I do hope you enjoyed it. Once again, if you did, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. I hope you're all having a great day wherever you are. Take really good care, and I will see you all again soon.